My name is Manuel Mata. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, and I'm a sinner. I'm an addict, and having different people and good moral support that I found in a place I never would. Because it's like when I started with church, I was a little kid, and my dad was a preacher slash singer or whatever, and he showed me God, but he confused me because at church it was always praise God, smile, shake hands, and do the right thing. But got home and alcohol, insecure, doubt, and just a whole bunch of other factors that made me understand the devil. So it impacted me so much that in my mind, the devil and God were the same thing because I saw both sides in one man, my father. So after that, I just abandoned religion totally. And then I ended up picking up the Satanic Bible in the Texas Youth Commissions in Gainesville State School when I was 16 years old. I think I was 16, about to be 17. I read the Satanic Bible, and everything in there made sense to me. Because at the time, I was filled with hate, anger, violence, aggression, survival, insecure, bitter, just everything you could imagine that was the opposite of good and decent as being a human being. And I just went with it because it felt good to where I didn't notice what I became. Because at that time, I just went into the dark parts of my situations, and instead of looking up, praying for help, I embraced it. And it was always something in my head like, I'm gonna beat it. I gotta beat it. But along the way, I would get, I guess you could say he would send his people to tell me about him. And there's a few times that really stuck out through my life because I'm 44 years old now. And the first one I remember was at my little sister's funeral. And Mary, she was murdered in a drive-by when she was 16 years old. At her funeral, I don't know who it was because, like I said, I had been gone already. I was 19 at the time, and I was already arrested. I was already locked up from the age of 14, so I was already 19. So I didn't really know too many people who were there besides family and close friends that are called family. And some guy told me this. He said, God wants you to understand that what you're doing right here is you're not burying your little sister. She'll always be with you. What you're burying is what they did to her. And you have the choice to either use it to change people or let it change you. And I looked at him, and remember, I was full of hate. And I just told him to get the F away from me, that I didn't want to hear none of that. Because, like, she was gone, and it was like, how can he exist? She was innocent. You know, that I was still with that. You know, I was still hating God because of the image one man gave me of God. So the next time that I remember clearly was, I think it was last year. I was aggravated about cases. And I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I was talking about how the district attorney and the judge and my attorney were all in it to screw me over, and they wanted the police to win. And I was at a park by my house, and some old lady named Mara, she walked up to me and she was like, "Sir, you know it's not okay to hit a lady." I said, "What?" Because I was talking about something completely different, and she caught me off guard. And I was like, "What are you talking about? Ain't nobody, I'm not talking about uh, nothing like that." And she thought I was arguing with my girlfriend at the time. And I was like, "No, that's not going on." And then she goes, "Well, can I tell you about God?" I said, "Really, I don't want to hear about God." And I don't know what made me say it, but I was like, because my dad was on that God thing, woo, 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 and he was an evil person. So I don't want to hear about God or anything like that, because no. And what she told me made me stop. It gave me pause, because she's like, my son was the same way. My husband, this, that, and but his story was just like mine. Like his father broke the image of God in her son, to where he ended up going so bad, he ended up incarcerated for God. And he said he was done. He didn't want to hang around with those type of people, and he ended up, God favored him, and ended up on his side, because it wasn't something he did. He was just with someone, and it turned into a blessing. And since then, that's what she said to me. So I was always like, what? Because my whole thing is what kids say nowadays. They won't listen to no one, because you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what I've been through. So when he said that, I could relate to that. She said that about her son. I could relate to him. And then she just said, could she pray for me? And normally I wouldn't let people. And I just said, go ahead. And it was crazy, because the next time I saw her, she was, she cooks food at her house, and she comes to my neighborhood, her and her son, and give meals to the homeless people around my neighborhood. And I met him. And when I heard his testimony, it just blew me away. So I started thinking about it more. And I got arrested for filming, and it threw me off track. And that's what I noticed, like the devil attacking me. So I blew it off like nothing. I didn't pay attention to what she was talking about anymore or anything. And then I started investigating. Uh, I noticed that there was a, a police officer coming into an area where I live in, but he had like a little van, and it was what this shirt is, Metro. And I was like, man. So my first instinct, he's a bad cop, because my whole picture was like, they're all, because there were no good cops. If you could sit there and let them do so much to me, bad things, I don't believe they exist. So I started to investigate him. And remember, this was like a year ago too. Armada was almost a year and a half ago, maybe longer, because that incident was first. And then what I was talking about is I started looking into them, because I learned how to investigate cops, like look up their backgrounds and their histories. So that's what I was doing to him. So I watched him for a while. I watched what he was doing, and he would come almost every Saturday, and he would come to an empty lot by in between these two or three apartment complexes, and he would give away food, he would give away clothes, and then he would do his wife and his son and his daughter. They all did, like they had the little Metro van. I call it the Metro van, because it's like a trailer, and it opens up and it's a stage, and they like they give sermons and they teach the word of God to kids. And that's what got me right there. Because at first I was like, you crook. Because I remember I thought about how my dad was. So that made me even pay attention more. I didn't know what was going on at first. So I just kept doing it. I kept going, I kept going. And their sermons, I started listening to them. And then I approached him one day. And I was like, what's your name? And he told me his name. So I wrote it down. And then I started looking up everything about him. And then one day he pulled up to the apartments where I was at. And he's like, hey, I know who you are. It's nice to meet you. And it threw me off because my reaction until then had been negative with Fort Worth police officers. And it wasn't the same. So it shocked me. So he's like, he got out of his car. It's nice to meet you. So I had a shirt that was disrespect to police officers, and his whole conversation with me touched me enough that he wanted to take a picture with me. But he's like, "But your shirt, I don't want to do it with that because you know." So I was willing to turn it inside out to take a picture with him, and that changed my whole it. It changed my whole life because then I started showing up to volunteer with them at this when they would come and give stuff away, and they gave turkeys one year, and last year we gave away turkeys, and I took pictures with them, and there was a whole bunch of the police chief, the lieutenants, a couple of watch commanders, and I posted it on the internet, and I got roasted for it. Everybody that supported me because I was always on like no good comps, like kind of turned their back on me. So I started going more and paying attention, and they all kept each one of them because it was him, his wife, his son, his daughter, even his daughter's dad and his mom. They all were preaching to me, inviting me to their church, and one day I explained to him why I didn't want to go to church, and he said that was okay. That it whatever bothered me or whatever he would be there to protect me from it. He wouldn't let no one or nothing bad happen to me. So I was like, all right, let me think about it. And the next time we went to the event that they had at Metro to give away stuff, he told me, he goes, hey man, I'm not pushing you or nothing. I just wanted to ask you, would you want to come to church? And I said, yeah, I would. So I went, and I still had that feeling when I walked in, just flashbacks of that little scared little kid that couldn't defend himself. And I think he saw it because he put his arm around me, and that's what made me go keep going. So I went, I liked the sermon, and I went again, and I went again, and there was a pastor when she preached her sermon. It was like he was telling me to come. It was time to come home, to stop fighting. So I did. Walked up front, and I prayed the prayer, and I gave my life to God. And at first, I was hesitant because it wasn't because the church or none of that. It was, could I do it? Because me, I've always been this person like, if I didn't understand something, if I couldn't figure something out, or I couldn't beat something, I would keep doing it until I could. And that's what I was worried about. Could I see this all the way through? And this past year has been the hardest because I chose to get baptized. And since then, I've lost people I thought mattered. A lot of people walked away from me, judged me, ridiculed me, made fun of me, and all I kept hearing was, "Don't quit, don't quit, keep going. You have to finish this. You have to keep going." And like I said, I've that same person I'm talking about who made me hate church and did horrible things to me when we were little. I stopped him from doing some horrible things that you wouldn't imagine. I survived some ugly things because of him. He made me be numb because he would hit me, beat me, and he would get it in excitement from me crying. So I stopped crying, and he said, "Oh, well, I can't hurt you physically." That's when I understood psychological and emotional torture. He did it to me. He's the reason I'm still scared of the dark right now as a grown man. But having God in my heart, everyone told me I had to forgive him, forgive him. And I said, "You don't even have to look at him. You don't have to go around him. Just call him." And I didn't feel right doing that because I needed to see his face. So that's what I did. I went all the way down to where he lives. And I saw him. When he finally came to my face, I walked up to him. I grabbed his hand. And I told him, "I forgive you, man. I don't hate you no more. I love you. And I just want you to know that I'm not mad no more." Told him again, I said, "I love you." And I pulled him in and I hugged him. And I whispered in his ear, "I want you to be happy." He did. And when he asked me if I wasn't, I told him, "Yeah." So I let him go. And he gave me his number. He hasn't answered it since. And it bothered me and it bothered me. And I know now that that's irrelevant. What I want him to say, what I want him to do, I don't. Because I know one thing, man. Going through what I went through, I've seen a lot of people quit and leave this place. And I just always had this fight thing in me. Like, I'm not going to let no one beat me. It can't win. My mom taught me how to survive. She did. That's why I'm glad I blamed her for a lot of things I didn't understand as a kid. There was one thing that always bothered me when she got on that stand when I was going to TYC and she told the judge that I was safer and the neighborhood was safer with me locked up. So from 14 to 21, I was locked up. And that made me bitter a lot. But then giving my life to God and then asking Him for understanding, I saw that she did it out of love because I couldn't see where I was going. She was protecting me. And I know how hard that was for her. So now I can say that giving my life to God and finally saying I can't do it no more and letting Him control what I'm doing now. Because now when things get hard, I pray hard. When things are good, I pray good. I thank Him. I tell Him I appreciate everything He gives me and everything that He doesn't give me because He knows why. I don't have to understand why. It's the greatest thing I ever did because without Him, I'm telling you, man, I ended up under a bridge, homeless, heroin. I was addicted to heroin for almost a year. No one knew. And I was pulling people out of their cars at stoplights. In prison, man, I was doing horrible things because that's what you have to become to survive. Because in the criminal system, you can become two things: a victim or a predator. There's no in between. Well, yeah, there is. It's Christian. You can say you're a Christian, pick up a Bible, but in the prison system, it's looked at as a bad thing. That's why they say you can't do nothing to them, because you don't get points. Like, you don't get credit for beating them up, taking stuff from them because they're Christians. So it's like beneath the average. So, and the violence you have to do just to go home. Like, just imagine waking up and the first thing you have to do before you brush your teeth or anything is put on your boots, tighten them, make sure you have your knife on you. And then you could brush your teeth, and then you can wash your face, and then you can do all that stuff. Because as soon as that door clicks open, you have to be ready at all times. Because there's people coming in, there's people that we have to push out, and then there's riots. You know, going through that so much, I've always had like this wall built up. And I'm so glad that whenever I have now a whole support system. Like, if I'm thinking something crazy or I'm trying to revert back to my old ways, I have Christian brothers. And it's crazy. I like, for 6 years, I've been the biggest cop hater in Fort Worth, Texas. That it was a police officer that took me to church and reunited me with God. And I'm not ashamed to say that, because it's not up to us. We don't get to choose who God picks to use to show himself to us. All we're supposed to do is embrace it. So you can look me up. You can look my story up. My name is Manuel Mata. And giving my life to God and becoming a Christian is the greatest thing I ever did. I think so many people, and that's the only reason I'm gonna continue. I've changed my whole perspective, my whole trajectory of what I was trying to change is bigger now. Because after I went through court, I've been arrested so many times for filming, and so I kept, my question to God was, what do I do now? And I was aggravated because I felt like he didn't hear me. So everything was a struggle. Everything was a struggle. Everyone was turning their backs on me. People I thought that I meant the world to didn't even care about mine. So at the end of all that, he showed me this. And this is a feeling I put into these words. How he showed himself to me and answered me through all this is he took people that I would die for out of my life and replaced them with people that I would live for. And everything that I felt before that mattered, he showed it didn't, because he let them choose to leave. Everything that I lost, everyone, it went on its own accord, its own will. I fought from a lot, but God won't change someone to show you how much he changed you. So it's like, and the way I explained it, the way I can make sense of all this is like this. It's how I felt when I got baptized. It's like this whole time I've been standing on the ledge, looking down, right? But the jump wasn't a bad thing, because when I look back, it was all the insecurities, my dad, doubt, everything that I held on to that I thought I needed to survive. But turning around and looking down, it wasn't the same world. It wasn't the same thing. So this whole time, I was worried that when I hit, I wasn't gonna survive. I wasn't gonna live. To where I was so focused on the jump and the landing that when I did finally jump, I finally looked and noticed that I was flying. And that's how I explain God. So for anyone who's thinking that someone else should be the judge of what you believe in and how something should save you, don't let it. Because my story and what I went through would shock most people. And for me to say that the biggest supporters I have were the people I was more vocal against because of certain individuals. So that's something else he showed me. Just like I wanted them to look at me a different way because I was changing, I had to understand that all of them aren't the same because of how some refuse to change. So for everyone, don't be scared of what you know is in your heart. Just get both of them to coincide, your mind and your heart. Because now I believe this. If God is with me, who can be against me? He made me stronger than I even knew. And I'll always be grateful for that. Thank you for listening to my story. And I hope it helps someone.